Okay, yesterday, September the 26th, 2016, Scott Mendelson came out with this article, right? Suicide Squad. Warner Brothers did everything right except make a good movie. Now, why am I chuckling about this? Because it's the very Scott Mendelson tracking Suicide Squad's progress who knows that Suicide Squad is leggier than Captain America Civil War. You know what that means, folks? That means that it has better word of mouth than Captain America Civil War. Alright? But I got something else to show you guys, man. So when we look at Suicide Squad here, this is the balance. These are the actual figures for it as of the end of the weekend. Now when we work out the legginess of Suicide Squad by its multiplier, we take this number, which you're seeing there, 318,000, or 318 million, 131,694. We divide it by its opening weekend, which is 133,682,248. Okay? What do we get when we divide it? We get a multiplier of 2.3797, which is basically 2.38. Alright? That's leggier, man, than X-Men Apocalypse, which was the second leggiest movie of the year. It was second to the movie Deadpool. In fact, it's leggier than Captain America Civil War, and guess what? So is Suicide Squad. But here's the joke. Suicide Squad is the second leggiest comic book movie for this year. Okay, it's right behind Deadpool. Yeah, that's right, folks. So Mr. Scott Mendelson knows this because he covered it. And he's very, very salty right now. He's very, very salty. He couldn't write something good because he knew he couldn't write anything good. And here's the joke about that. Nobody, I mean nobody, no one does word of mouth, positive word of mouth about a bad movie. Nobody. So his statement immediately is contradicted by the very facts. Okay? If Suicide Squad is not a good movie, guess what? So is Civil War. That's what you're basically saying, Mr. Scott Mendelson. You just dissed your own Marvel film franchise, the MCU franchise. You just dissed yourself. Now, The Independent puts out this. Now, The Independent also has been speaking adversely towards Suicide Squad. And in an interview, Jai Courtney responds to DC Films critics, or basically the naysayers, the ones who don't like the movies. Said, despite Suicide Squad being hounded by critics, the DC film still grossed upwards of 700 million worldwide. Let's just show the actual figure, shall we? To put some more salt into their eyes. Actually, it's 731.8 million and counting this week. Okay? Whether a sequel is definitely happening is unknown, but a Margot Robbie starring Harley Quinn solo film is definitely on the cards. Speaking to MTV for their Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, Jai Courtney, who plays Captain Boomerang in the film, explains why he wasn't fazed by the critics' reaction. How do you please everyone? And I don't think Suicide Squad ever intended to, he said via Comic Book Movie. So no one's setting out to upset the fan base, certainly not a fan base that can be as loyal as this kind of crowd can. But I don't know how you can push the envelope or try and protect something without taking risk. I know what I like in a movie, and it's not the same thing as my 12-year-old niece. It's a challenge, and David Ayer did an incredible job, and I sure as hell hope we get to make another one with him. He goes on to say something that I've been saying all along about the DCEU. Basically, he says that Marvel's previous investment in films, including Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk solo films, has given them an advantage. That is to say, people know what to expect. They had time to let that so-and-so marinate, he continued. Everything's established now. We don't have to figure out who anyone is. If you notice, the 3 films in the DC franchise have all been origin or debutante films. You get to know who these people are. You get introduced to them. Some of them you see them develop over time. Man of Steel was an origin film. Batman v Superman was a debutante film for the rebooted Batman, for Wonder Woman, for Lex Luthor, for Superman, for Superman, for Batman, 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 for Lex Luthor's aides for the Senator Finch, for an enormous amount of people, okay? And then you had another debutante film in Suicide Squad. Again, nobody's ever seen. There's a reboot of the Joker. You got Batman for continuity, but everybody else, Amanda Waller's being introduced. You got Deadshot being introduced. You have Harley Quinn being introduced. You have Killer Croc being introduced. A lot of introduction of characters. So again, he's 100% correct. Everything's established now, he's saying, about Marvel films. We don't have to figure out who anyone is. It's like, cool, get them together. Let's have a so-and-so orgy and make $1 billion. So that's what's going on with DC. And it's interesting how negative people have been to DC. But as they said, it's mostly fanboys, Marvel tards, who are trying to bash DC because they feel threatened how DC comes, this new guy on the block, already blowing away things in spite of all the negativity that's out there. Blowing away things, blowing people's minds already so early in the game, making people fans of it without getting the significant stamp of approval by the establishment. The critics are not giving them any edge. They're not trying to let them have anything positive. That's why I'm telling you guys once again, Wonder Woman is not going to get any positive critical reception. It's not going to happen. You can forget about that. Throw that out the window. I'll tell you why. I don't care if Patty Jenkins was, pro-Hollywood. It wasn't going to happen because these fanboys are not going to allow the DCEU to get any positivity. Any positivity by the establishment will result in a skyrocketing, a exponential climb by the DCEU. They don't want that to happen. If that happens, it's over. It's over. You understand what I'm saying? DC will dominate. Warner Brothers will dominate like they did back in the 2000, before 2008. They just dominated everything. And they will do that. Because Zack Snyder found that critical piece that Warner Brothers didn't have. They were dominating all the way up to 2008, but they just couldn't get a reboot of Superman to be effective and to be something that really was important for the franchise. They tried to reboot Superman in Superman Returns, staying true to the Christopher Reeve version. That backfired royally. Then they tried another route by going via Green Lantern. That backfired royally. But they had all these cards on the table. Batman v Superman since 2002. They had all these cards on the table. They just couldn't get Superman to launch, couldn't debut him. So they tried getting a Christopher Reeve analog. It didn't work. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is this. The negativity that you see, even I listened to, even this very article is tongue-in-cheek. Again, remember, this is an adverse article to Batman v Superman and to any DCU film. Meanwhile, Suicide Squad has recently been given the inevitable 50 Shades of Grey mashup by a fan, dubbing the film 50 Shades of Joker. Again, negativity. You have to associate this film with something that's negative. Now, 50 Shades of Grey, yes, it was critically panned. It did well at the box office. But not in the way like how Suicide Squad is being done. Okay? 50 Shades of Grey is way below Suicide Squad's reputation at this point in time. Not only 50 Shades of Grey, Transformers, and let me show you something. Okay, so Suicide Squad, when you look at the weekends of its domination at the box office and the amounts that it's made over $1 million, right? It's done at 8 straight weekends so far. X-Men Apocalypse hasn't done that. Right? They did it for 6 straight weekends. That's it. Okay, Captain America Civil War, and remember, that has been critically panned. Captain America Civil War. Remember, Captain America Civil War got all the accolades, got everything that you could possibly give it to do well. And guess how much it made? It only went for 8 straight weekends. And it fizzled out. Alright? Deadpool's the only other one that's done what Suicide Squad's doing. It went for 9 straight weekends, and the trend is pretty much similar. I don't know if Suicide Squad will go for 9 straight weekends. I don't see why it won't, but we'll see. We have to watch and see. You know what's the interesting thing about Suicide Squad and Deadpool, which I think is just, it appeals to me so much. Unlike Guardians of the Galaxy, which was for family, and everybody could go see Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad and Deadpool were to targeted audiences. Deadpool was rated R, so you had to be above a certain age to go see Deadpool, right? Suicide Squad is also targeting a certain age group. It was targeting people from 13 years of age all the way up to about your 30s, early 30s. It was a targeted group that Suicide Squad targeted. Females were also targeted in Suicide Squad of certain age ranges. Now, why am I saying this? Suicide Squad and Deadpool have a lot in common with them. And actually, if you look at Suicide Squad, it's not that far away from Deadpool. Deadpool, as you can see, grossed here. Its complete gross was $782 million. Suicide Squad is about $50 million off of it, maybe a little less than $50 million. At this present moment, it's slightly less than $50 million off of it, right? That's interesting, right? Guardians of the Galaxy is not in Suicide Squad's class, nor Deadpool's class. Okay? Guardians of the Galaxy had China. Okay? Suicide Squad does not have China's market. Deadpool did not have China's market. Suicide Squad is something like Deadpool in some ways. Remember, Deadpool was also an ensemble of some kind. It had two other X-Men with Deadpool. One was well known, the other was not well known at all. Suicide Squad wasn't well known. Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't well known. But the interesting thing about this is Suicide Squad, on the other hand, was one in which the characters are more villainous than even Deadpool. And Deadpool has more in common with Suicide Squad than does Guardians of the Galaxy. Alright? Guardians of the Galaxy was more of a bunch of misfits. Suicide Squad is not a bunch of misfits. And Deadpool is not a bunch of misfits. Deadpool is literally an anti-hero, and he does a lot of things that a hero would not do. Suicide Squad is not about an anti-hero. They are just straight up villains. And they chose the lifestyle they have. They chose the consequences they had. They're not misfits. They fit in quite well with the criminal underworld. And they are forced to do a mission. So this is a totally different pan to even Deadpool. It's a totally different pan to Guardians of the Galaxy as well. Even though Guardians of the Galaxy ended up in prison for a bit in their movie, they still got out of prison and they went on their own mission. And they found themselves together. Suicide Squad's not that. Suicide Squad, these criminals were mandated to work together. Okay? So, you can see that Suicide Squad is following the trend of Deadpool so far. I don't know how far it'll go. But if it gets within 30 million of Deadpool, that's going to be remarkable. Because Deadpool had a fan base. And people wanted Deadpool to be seen on the screen. This is different to Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad, nobody necessarily wanted Suicide Squad to be on the screen. People, the marketing generated the interest for Suicide Squad, how different it seemed to be. And that's what drove Suicide Squad. You can't say there's a lot of passionate Suicide Squad fan base that's saying, we wanted Suicide Squad. It's not like Deadpool. Deadpool, there was a fan base that wanted to see Deadpool come onto the big screen. With Suicide Squad, it ended up some leaked footage on Comic-Con, kind of like Deadpool, but the difference was it was coming anyway. Okay, it wasn't the fans that drove it. Oh, we want to see Suicide. No. This was different. So Deadpool had inbuilt in it a fan base, and there's going to be a fan base for Deadpool irregardless. Now Suicide Squad has acquired a fan base. All right, we already had a DCEU fan base, which liked what the DCU was bringing from Man of Steel. I know I'm on board for the whole entire ride because it was Man of Steel that brought me in. I watched Man of Steel like how many? I even have it on DVD right now. I've watched Man of Steel so many times it's not funny. It's the best Superman movie I've ever seen. Live action. And then Batman v Superman to me is the best comic book movie of all time I've ever seen. Okay? And then Suicide Squad fits somewhere between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. Literally how the box office is done is exactly how I think of Suicide Squad. It wasn't so much about the story. The story is forgettable. I think what was truly interesting was the journey of the characters. That's the most interesting thing. It was so short, you always feel like you need to get more of it. And that's what I liked about Suicide Squad. David Ayer did a great job, and I analyzed Suicide Squad already. But it's not a movie I needed to see more than once. I did see it twice, but I didn't need to see it more than once. I got the whole story in the first viewing. But there's a lot of stuff hidden in Suicide Squad, so I'm kind of looking at it still. But suffice it to say, guys, I just wanted to make this video because I wanted to show you the hypocrisy of some people. This guy, he was gnashing his teeth as he had to talk about Suicide Squad and its performance, particularly the fact that there was good word of mouth for it. A multiplier of 2.38. That's better than, like I said, it's better than X-Men Apocalypse. It's surpassed X-Men Apocalypse. It will never get to Deadpool. I don't think so. I think Deadpool will be the standard for this year. Its multiplier was 2.74, and that is the leggiest movie of the year in terms of comic book movies. And we're talking about, of course, comic book movies that didn't flop at the box office, of course. And so I think that is great. I also showed you the other indicators. I call it pseudoscience. The other indicators, what has to do with the weekends. And you can see that in terms of weekends, Suicide Squad's weekend count is really good. It's awesome. It reminds me a lot of Deadpool's weekend count. Right here. It really does. Right? If it keeps this trend and it goes to 2 million next weekend, or 1 million next weekend, high 1 millions next weekend, it will really be following the trend. Captain America Civil War phased out after the 8th weekend. Okay, didn't have the legs, and look at where it began. Right, X-Men Apocalypse phased out in 6 weekends. Okay, so I'm telling you, this is special. Suicide Squad is doing some special things. This is a special movie, and the fact that Suicide Squad was panned worse than all those other movies we're talking about that is compared with. Deadpool got really great reviews, great critical reviews. For a movie, again, that had no damn story. The interesting thing about the story of Deadpool is just the anti-hero aspect of Deadpool, and the fact that he shatters the fourth wall and he talks to people all the time. It's mostly a spoof film, right? Deadpool has nothing else for it. They talk about it makes a mockery of superhero movies. Well, it does nothing, okay? But it's nice to see a spoof film, don't get me wrong. I'm not interested in it. Suicide Squad gets ripped to shreds by the critics. 26% on Rotten Tomatoes. 26%. You know the critics were just attacking the DCEU. They wanted to see it fail. It didn't fail. No, hell no. Suicide Squad still making that cha-ching. It's just making that paper. Okay, and where will it end? I don't know, but I know it's supposed to be winding down pretty soon. You know, we're still in the month of September, and we still got October. So I guess by somewhere in October, it would have wound down significantly, and then it just probably makes 3 or 4 million more domestically, and probably 6 or 7 or 10 million or 12 million more internationally. So about 17 million more. After all is said and done, it may pass 750 million. It may just do that because it's well within range to do it at this point in time. I don't know if it will or won't, but I do know there's still a lot of people writing reviews about Suicide Squad on YouTube, and there's a lot of activity around it, and a lot of activity around the toys and around the clothing, and there's a lot. The age group 13 all the way up to 30, they really dig this movie, man. They've been digging this movie, and that's the reason why it's been doing so well, and that's why people keep on talking about it. So I'm really awe-inspired by that. That's a big plus for the DCEU. If it can somehow get past 2.50x and surpass Man of Steel and become the leggiest DCEU movie, that would be more than awesome. Okay. Because an exceptionally good leg movie is about 3.6, 3.2. A solid leggy movie is like all around 2.3 all the way up to 2.8. So, I mean, if you can get anywhere in between there, you're doing well. Deadpool did very, very, very well. And Suicide Squad also did very, very, very well. And especially for that huge opening weekend that they had. So we'll see what's happening with these movies. We'll see how things progress and continue onwards as they pile in the cash. Obviously, Suicide Squad is by now surpassed Iron Man. It's long since surpassed that total. Iron Man is in the past. Both domestically and internationally. So Suicide Squad is moving on to the next set of levels. Where do I think? Like I said, I thought it would end somewhere between 314 million domestically and 322 million domestically. I may have to reset that figure because I have a strong feeling that it's going to surpass 320 million by probably the end of this week. Even though we're talking about 200 million, 300 million, 200 million. Let's say 200 million by 5. Yeah, that's $1 billion. So $1 million, sorry. So 319 million by the weekend. By the end of the weekend, it will be way past 320 million. It may be at 321 million. I think it'll be at the end of next weekend there. So yeah, I see this movie pushing on to be. It's gonna be close to Batman v Superman's domestic total. It's going to pull up pretty close to Batman v Superman's domestic total, and that's going to be impressive. I'm looking forward to it. You guys have a great one. Oh, and just one more time. Oh, this guy's so salty. I just had to do it. 2.38, folks. 2.38. That means good word of mouth. Oh, by the way, one more thing, just for the record, This is one of very few. In fact, this is the only movie. Oh, it's not the only yet. It's close, but it's gonna be the only movie. I think at the end of its run, I think it's gonna be the only movie that has dropped that low in its second weekend. All right, I think it was what. 65% or something like that, or 63%, I can't remember. That dropped that low and still ends up having such a good word of mouth that its multiplier ends up being 2. I think at the end of the day, I think Suicide Squad may have something near to 2.4 something, maybe 2.42 or 2.41. I don't know, but I think it's going to get to there. I think it's going to get to that multiplier. But we'll watch and see. Okay, you guys have a great one.